So, welcome everyone, Samantha. Samantha, would you like me to call you Samantha or the usual Sammy that you like?
Call me Sammy, like we usually do in our chats. Yeah, yeah.
Sammy, Sam, cool. I was thinking as I'm preparing a little bit for this podcast, that we met about 12 years ago once on the Camino de Santiago, and then a few weeks back or a couple of months back in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And here we are on a podcast. Thank you very, very much for accepting to be my guest
My
on
pleasure.
deep dive dardashat. Dardashat is like chit chat in Arabic. So deep dive
Yeah.
dardashat, and hopefully we dig deep somewhere, in one of the conversations. Uh,
And I'm really grateful to Saudi Arabia and to Riyadh for reuniting us
yeah,
and it was funny because you were leaving and I was arriving. We had like a, 12-hour crisscross and we managed to have breakfast and it was just perfect to see you after so many years.
exactly. So you've done a lot. You've done a lot before, and so up to 10, 12 years, however long. So for our viewers and our listeners, give us the version that you'd like to give about yourself.
I think that I'll start with the big picture, which is I'm I'm a paradigm shifter, as I like to call it. So
Mm.
I think with everything I've done in my life is very unconventional. So I didn't grow up in one place. I've moved cities about 20 times. I speak I'm bilingual Spanish, English, and speak a few different languages. But like even just the way that I think, the way I operate, the fact that I have no one country or city to call home, I think those things just have made me be very different and see the world in a very different way. And somehow with like a kind of further perspective, just kind of like what are we humans doing here on Earth? And it's, I think it's funny because when I travel, like for example, when I go to countries like Saudi Arabia where things are so different, the way I see travel is like all human beings have very similar needs, but we kind of cater to them in different ways in different countries. So like, oh look, this is what they did with potatoes in Lebanon. Oh, this is what they did with potatoes in Peru. Look how funny. It's the same vegetable we all need to eat, but we chopped them differently and threw some different seasoning. And it's like that with everything, with relationships, with housing. We all just have the same needs, but they look different. So anyway, I'm digressing, but that's a little bit how I see the world and culture and just life. And I've dedicated myself to studying human behavior and to understanding people and why we are so irrational sometimes and why we have so much technology and intelligence, yet we can't solve some of the most basic problems. And that's what I love, and that's what I love to talk about.
Speaking of being like in 20 different cities throughout, uh, are you anchoring yourself to one now, or do you feel you're closer to one than others?
Well, look, Spain has been definitely one of the big constants. Like, I grew up between Spain and the US, but I was born in Venezuela. And blood-wise, I'm a quarter Italian, a quarter Spanish, and 50% Lebanese, right? So
My God.
it's like, it's crazy. And it's so crazy because I have 50% Lebanese blood, and I think I look quite Lebanese. And
Hmm.
yet I've never been there and I don't speak Arabic, right? So it's like, it's interesting, but Spain right now is my anchor, and Madrid is a city that has, nested me in four different stages of my life, from when I was 4, when I was 15, when I was 22, and now again in my 30s. So yeah, I'm here right now.
Very, very interesting. So, what took you to Saudi? What took you to Saudi? That's what I'm interested in. We met
Yeah.
there, and I felt you were scouting things out, feeling your way. I would like to know first. First of all, what took you there? And then just to follow up more questions on how come, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a project. It was a work project. Last year with this big consulting company, we started doing these programs. So I write training programs for organizations, for universities, for my own academy. And so we wrote this beautiful program for one of the best universities in Riyadh. And after many months of waiting to get like background checks and all of that, finally in January, it happened, the actual delivery after writing the programs. So yeah, I did a lot of research. I was like, okay, what is this? And to be honest, I was a little bit like not I was not more scared than I was excited, but I think other people actually put a little bit of fear in me too. Like, oh, be careful, like, how it is over there. And especially me being this like unapologetic Latin, fiery woman. I was scared about my own like expression because sometimes I can be like a bit, I don't know, I'm just very authentic and I'm very honest and I'm very transparent. And so I talk about things that are taboos and I say things that everyone's like, everyone was thinking it, but nobody said it. And I was like, I don't know if how that's gonna land in, in Saudi Arabia.
Tell me, tell me like one thing or an incident or
Well, like no, I didn't actually like it didn't actually happen. It was more like the pre, and then you know, I hired this beautiful woman. It was great because then I got to meet her, Cheryl, who does a lot of cross-cultural training, and she gave me a little bit of the rundown, especially how it was like in universities, right? What
Mm,
to do, what not to do, how to act, what to expect, even just knowing that Saudi Arabians are not, Saudis are not like exactly punctual and insisting on things and understanding those things. But to be honest, Tony, honestly, I don't know if it's my, Lebanese, Venezuelan, Spanish, like the Mediterranean, the Latin, that there's a lot of things that where I felt at home, you know,
you did.
where it was, yeah,
Mm,
yeah. In fact, speaking when I was teaching to these, it was two programs. One was for women, a women's self-worth program. Another one was about leadership with men and women. That was the most shocking part. I'll tell you about that in a second.
mhm,
But like with the women, when we were there, like I could feel also this like power in these women, and they were so strong and intelligent and capable, right? And I loved being there because I think we're as a civilization, as a planet, I think we're on a journey, and
mhm,
I'm very connected to the journey of women in particular, and all the shifts that have happened in the last 100 years and how they've helped us and how they've been confusing and how they might have hurt us and all of that. And I think Saudi Arabia, it opened up so much in the last 5 years that it's like I feel that Saudi Arabia somehow is at the back of the train of the women's journey in
mhm,
many ways, but
mhm,
that's so beautiful because you get to see like in action the patterns every single woman has in believing in ourselves. In fact, I was speaking to the dean of the university who was a woman, and she said something I loved, and she's like, there hasn't been anything in Saudi culture in the system that has stopped us from being in positions of leadership. That has it's like there's been a glass ceiling, she said, and we
ah,
haven't believed that we're capable. And then nobody even tried because everyone thought like women just don't do that until a woman did.
mm.
And I was like, interesting. Okay, interesting.
And how
It's just
was it
interesting to hear that.
when you said they're at the back of the train? Does that mean they started late, or what do you actually mean by that?
Yeah, and it was a metaphor. And as I was saying it, I'm like, I don't know if that's the right metaphor, but what I mean is, I think in terms of rights and culture, because even if something is not embedded in the legal system, right? Like, even if it doesn't, the glass ceilings and the cultural expectations are still very real. right? Like if women don't do something in your country, in your family, in your place, like it's very difficult for you to be the first one that does it. So I think until 5 years ago, around 2019,
Hmm.
I don't know, I would say, and help me with the words here, but like Saudi Arabia was not the best place for women's voices to be heard and to thrive, and to women to feel empowered and capable and free and be able to be in positions of leadership and use their voice to, affect change. That was not the place where women's rights and women's freedoms thrived. So in that they, if I could put countries of the world, right, they're still like, they're still catching on to that wave. And I think with the 2030 vision, that is a lot of what's happening. It's like,
Hmm.
let's impulse the women also. Let's hold on, let's bring women up. And there's so many beautiful programs to make that happen. And in fact, it was beautiful because the women that I taught, they were, I would say between ages 19 and 23.
Oh,
And they told, yeah, university students. and
yeah.
and they said, like, some of them said to me that because their adult life was in these 5 years of intense progress, they didn't feel maybe some of the stuckness, the repression that their mothers might have felt. They
Yeah.
feel they can do everything, even though, of course, what I work on is the psychological part where you still don't truly believe it, so you hold yourself back and all of that. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah,
And do you feel that there's, I mean, this, let's say this 19 to 23 year olds, the ones you saw, you think they're moving fast enough to quote unquote catch up, if there's any catch up to be done, or they don't know any different?
absolutely. No, no, they are on it. Like, they are so, you could tell they're like on it, because now with the internet, it's also easy to see what's going on in the world, and they knew about so many people internationally, locally. They were curious because it's about, for me, it was just seeing their inner spark. And it was like they were curious and they were intelligent and they challenged me, and I loved that. And we had these good discussions. And yeah, I think absolutely, absolutely they're on it.
What would be the one takeaway, like the one lesson you picked up from them, or let's start with that one big takeaway. Well, it doesn't have to be big, but
More than a takeaway, maybe it's a confirmation of the importance of these, like, safe spaces for women, where, and when I mean safe, I mean where we're asking them to share their voice, and to look inside and, like, connect with their inner truth. I think I think, look, even though, again, the external systems are kind of like pushing us upwards, including Saudi Arabia, there's still that inner work where we still need, like, permission to be certain things and to say certain things.
mm,
And so yeah, I think that that's still very much needed, you know,
everywhere, or particularly in Saudi Arabia.
everywhere.
And when we say we, you mean women?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
How come? Why do you think that is so?
Tony, it's been thousands of years where women, like, didn't exist in the forefront of society. So we only existed kind of in the back, in the shadows, like in the home, in social part, but it was like men who were at the forefront of the world, right? Like the legal systems, the medical systems, like decision making, anything that was deemed to be a serious matter was dealt with by men, right? Money, financial systems, like women couldn't have bank accounts in a few decades ago, and maybe still in some part. No, maybe no, for sure still, because I've actually heard people on Instagram saying that women shouldn't vote because we don't have the intellectual capacity. Like, there's still people that think these things.
Yeah, but there
But
are
before
also
it was the
people.
norm. But before it was the norm. It was.
How, yeah, I mean, how before? Yeah, I don't claim to know your space, the that space. But if we go maybe 100 years, you're right, 200 years, but maybe there were patches in the world where matriarchy systems were uh, prevalent. Do you know of any of those throughout history?
Yeah, yeah, there were like many, many thousands of years ago. But also, for me, like, I don't, because even when we bring in patriarchy and then we bring in matriarchy, it's as if we had to choose one or the other. And I'm like, I don't believe in a system that revolves around like the man or the woman in particular, or one is the leader. I believe men and women are beautiful, like the feminine and the masculine are beautiful complements. And men have so many amazing necessary qualities that complement the amazing qualities that women have, and vice versa.
Mhm.
And it's difficult to have these conversations after 3,000 years of patriarchy. That, and I say this with love. I don't say it with blame or, but the truth is that the last thousands of years of humanity, like the paradigm, speaking of paradigm shifting, has been around domination and war and protecting and dominating others in order to keep ourselves safe, right? And um that, I mean, I find that absolutely exhausting. I find that a very masculine way of thinking and existing and operating, and it's very fear-based, control-based, survival-based, right? And I do think that there is, I always say this, like, what would it take for a woman to declare a war, for a woman to say, yes, go in there and kill all of the mothers and children and rape them all and do go in there and attack. Like, I just felt like crying just saying that. And
Let
and
me
I'm
ask
not
you a
saying,
question. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. No, I just want to say, and I'm not
See,
saying all
I'm
men did that.
confused. I'm
Yeah. Okay,
confused.
okay. Tell me,
Help
tell me,
me,
tell me.
help me clarify. So
Yeah.
you talk about the masculine, you talk about the feminine, and then you talk about men, and then you talk about women, and then you talk about the the negatives or the killing side and the control side. You portray that too. I don't know if it is the masculine or the men. So is there any difference? First of all, in your opinion? And
I love the question. Okay, let's do it. So look,
okay,
this
okay.
is
Let's peel it. Yeah.
okay. How I see it,
Okay.
masculine and feminine are two forces of creation that make everything. The feminine is like the life, the energy, the unseen behind, and then the masculine is the matter, what you can actually see and touch. This is my understanding of feminine
Okay.
masculine energy,
Okay.
which exists in everything. Everything. You take your phone, you take you as human, you have this inner feminine that is like the life force, and then you have
Mhm.
like the physical body, right? And so um, both men and women have masculine and feminine energy because everything in existence does. And somehow, right? And this is a question I have. I don't have a clear, belief around it, but I think there's something about the relationship a man has to the masculine and the relationship that the woman has to the feminine that is a little bit more native. Like, it's kind of like the comfort
Built
zone.
in. Built in.
Exactly. It's sort of like, oh, as women, for example, nobody has to like teach us to how to give birth and how to be pregnant and how to host a child, and somehow birthing life and it growing is like a feminine intelligence that we have inside of us, and that also includes like nurturing the child and right, it's like these qualities that are built into us. It's
Mhm.
not that men don't have that, right, but it's a little bit different, the nativeness, the intuitiveness around it. And the same as men, this is something simple, right? But men, because the masculine is the material world, you know, I don't know many women who love to build things, who love to put the furniture up, who love to even take their computer to I know men that love to take the computer and take all the pieces apart and then put it back together. And this, again, this is just anecdotal, but most women I know, that's like their worst nightmare. They want a man to do that. And so the men are good at the material world, right? Like building the boat, like like going and taking the army. And I'm just putting this in the war paradigm, but this is also for beautiful things. Building the house to protect
Oh,
the people, to go into the world and make money and provide for the family, right?
right.
It's also the amazing parts. And what I think is that in the last thousands of years, there hasn't been teamwork. It has been oriented towards the masculine. And the problem is that both the masculine or the feminine, without the integration of the other, is unbalanced. And I'm going to give you an example of just so we don't only see it for men, right? What does a man without integrated feminine energy look? Well, rigid, controlling. There's many things here. This is like a book I'm writing on this, right? So, but then with the women, it's the same. What does a woman look like? This is a complete exaggeration, and it's one example, but just so we have an example, a
Yeah.
woman without her masculine energy. I'm going to give you an exaggeration here. She's all over the place. One moment she's happy, the other moment she's crying. She's like, "You don't love me." And there's drama. There's like complete chaos. There's absolutely no order to what's going on. She's unable to keep herself safe. She wants one thing one day, the next day. So I'm just putting it because we also don't want a system. I'm not saying the feminine is better than the masculine. We do not want
Of
a
course
thing
you're not.
polarized.
Of course we're not, are we now? No, we're
No,
not.
no,
We're
absolutely not.
okay. Okay, good.
Absolutely not. But
Okay.
what does it look like when a man is in touch with his feminine? And so that means that he's also in touch with his internal world, with his emotions, right? He's in touch with his own intuition. That means he can also relate with the women's feminine and intuition and
Mm.
softness and creativity. And the same is with the woman who's in touch with her masculine. She can then also honor the structure and honor um the sense of, duty, for example, the order that is needed in certain moments, right, to be able to move forward and not just be and again, I'm not saying all women are like this at all. I'm saying
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what the energies are like when we're polarizing in one of the two
Speak-
extremes.
Speaking of talking and opening up, you know, women and now feminine women, I'm not confusing, just when women get together, they sit in a circle and they talk for an hour or two. And when they're done, it's the therapy session is over and everyone goes home happy, lighter, for the most part. Men, uh, it's usually shoulder to shoulder. They're solving a problem. They're building something. And at the beginning, no deep talk happens, but after a while, they start, throwing some tidbits and nuggets of deep nuggets to share with each other. Or they sit around a fire, probably with, either smoking or doing something. So it's a different approach to opening up and discussing amongst themselves, right? Now, um, I'm glad you clarified between the feminine and the masculine and the men and the women, and it's a mix. It's a mix. Going back, you rubbed me the wrong way a little bit when you were mentioning that, it's been thousands of years. I'm not sure if it's thousands of years. I tried to give you a hint. Maybe it's not as bad as one sees it. Maybe the women had a major role, but you're right, it wasn't the prominent role, right? You had Antony and Cleopatra during the Pharaoh times. Now, whose role was more important? And we hear about this story. Is it just because history tells us the story, or how true was it? So both had a lot of influence, and their union did a lot without going into the details. Let me take you to, you hinted something in Saudi Arabia, that you talked about the women and the spark and these young women, 19 to 23-year-olds. But then you went and you said, but there was another session where men and women were in the same room. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, that was fascinating because, you know, I was delivering the second course with a male colleague of mine, for starters, and we did a first session. It was a seminar, and afterwards we were hesitating about whether the men and the women were going to be able to like talk and do some of the exercises that we had for them. And so after the seminar, a group of women come to talk to me in a circle, and we're all talking and chatting,
Yeah.
and then yeah, and basically I asked them, like, just in confidence, I was like, hey ladies, I want to ask you, are you comfortable doing an exercise, the exercises we have in the weekend with men? Oof. And then it just like sparked this like little thing. And this one woman, she was like, no, miss, we do not feel comfortable doing these exercises with the men. Like, look how they sat over there. Look how uncomfortable they are. Like, they're not comfortable when we're here, and we're not comfortable when they're here. Like, we're not our full selves because, this whole thing. And I was like, wow, I did not expect that. And she's like, and she basically said, like, I haven't spoken to any man outside of my family my whole life. And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, that's incredible. And then other women were like, well, no, I think it is a good, because I said to her, I was like, okay, I totally respect that. And I understand how that could be vulnerable. And I asked her, don't you want to use this safe space to start practicing that if you know that in maybe a year or two you're going to be in a workplace where you're going to have those interactions? And and it was very valid what she said. She said, not with these topics, because the topics I teach, they're deep,
Mm.
and we're talking about purpose and vision, and it's already difficult to open up to that to anybody, right?
Right.
Of a woman,
Right.
even if it was your family. And then so it's like adding the layer of it's a stranger, it's somebody I don't know, and it's a man. It's just too much. But some women did choose, and we gave them the option. So some women did just with the women, and other women,
Um,
mixed. And we
same
also
same
asked the men.
same
Yeah,
age group. Same age group.
same age group. Yes,
Ah.
yes.
And
But
what was your observation on whatever on that?
I think I could feel, and I don't. I'm just going to speak completely from my personal experience because I don't know what is exactly going on behind the scenes. But I could sense still like this fear
Mm.
and respect, like respect and fear interwoven, even in the men's interactions with me. So, for
Uh-huh.
example, sometimes the men would, like, even some of the staff, we would be talking, and I feel like they would avoid eye contact and kind of look somewhere else, and then like take a step further away from me.
Mm.
And of course, from in my cultures, that would be disrespectful. But of course, I did not, like, holding eye contact is a sign of respect and of presence, and you know, and yeah, and so it was very interesting just to witness that. Even as a teacher, the male students at the beginning, when I made eye contact with them, they would look away until
Mm.
they realized like I had absolutely there was no problem, and I'm the teacher. They can look at me as I'm talking. But there was something there where I don't know if it's just, I think it's really embedded in the culture of like respecting the women, not making them feel uncomfortable in any way. Maybe there's things around like just I think I was, because I read a lot about Islam, before going. And I've read a lot about Islam when I was in university, actually, in my early 20s, and I think it's beautiful. And there's so many beautiful things about it. And I learned a lot about Islam also in teaching because I realized we do not have such a different understanding of God. And one of the women, when she left the class, the course, actually, we finished the last day, she came to me and she's like, Miss, 80% of what we learned is in the Quran. We just don't talk about it. And I
Oh,
was like, wow, wow.
interesting.
How,
Interesting.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. How do you
did you,
experience this? Like,
what was,
yeah,
uh, okay, but before, because I just have a question. What's that? What was your biggest challenge in this little adventure that you did, leaving from Madrid to Saudi Arabia and throughout your stay there? Deep down, what was a big challenge you think? Was there one?
yeah, I think it was like there was my sense of safety.
Mhm. Physical safety?
I, well, I knew Saudi Arabia was very safe,
Yeah.
but there's something about like when you're in a country that has such a let's call it very strong culture and religion,
Mhm.
and you don't speak the language, you're not from the culture, you are a woman, right? Like there was just a lot of unknowns where I don't have a lot of fears. I'm not very fear driven, and I feel very protected in general. And that was okay for me, but there was something there about like, wow, I don't know, what if I'm in some weird. And in fact, I had, for example, a strange situation with an Uber driver. I took many, many, many Ubers, just one Uber
Yeah.
driver that was like using Google Translate to talk to me, and then it started like crossing a line, you know?
Ah,
That was not good. And I felt really uncomfortable, and I just like called my brother and was talking on the phone, and then, but yeah, it's I think as women, right? Like in countries that have also traditionally been very male dominated, it's kind of like a little bit scary.
and okay, so you came in with, let's say, yay apprehension. What happened, and when did it happen? Like day one? Can you can you tell us?
Yeah,
Did it go
I think with
down?
like
Did
yeah, look, I think talking to people from there, like before, like this woman that I hired for this training, and just it was just a chat, but and then yeah, I think it just slowly was like, okay, cool. And again, I am so trusting, and I'm like, if I'm being taken there, it's for a beautiful purpose, and that's where I have to be, and I trust that fully. Um, and I think I just yeah, from the moment I landed, I was like, okay, and actually you were the first like friendly face that I saw when I after arriving.
yeah, we signed you up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you
I
spent two
think
three
like
weeks there, right? You spent two
yeah,
three weeks
three
there.
three full
Mm.
weeks. And I think I was scared of like doing something wrong unintentionally. Like,
Mhm.
for example, I even thought like, oh my, like me and you, we hugged when we saw each other.
Right,
And then later though, when my other like male colleague came for teaching, we never hugged in public,
right.
you know?
Mm.
Like I didn't even think about that before, but then I kind of saw, and then these like, and I'm so affectionate. Like I'm such a like
The
a
Latin
toucher,
you,
and yeah, and I put
the
my hand on
Lebanese
like
you.
people's backs. Yeah. So I was like scared to do something wrong just by being me. That was like my biggest fear. But look, it didn't happen. I felt good. I felt um there were some communication issues sometimes. Like it was difficult to communicate, but what we managed. And I felt really safe overall. Like really safe
Good.
overall. Yeah.
Good,
I,
good.
I hope I have a really good reason to go back again soon.
You want to come up with a reason to go back soon?
I
The
think we should.
entrepreneur in you, the entrepreneur in you.
Yes. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Because I feel there's so much to do there. There's like they're excited about the world and about life and thirsty about like what we've been doing in the West and I feel there's like yeah, a lot of amazing things we could bring in.
Hmm. So are your businesswoman engine starting to cylinders start to fire up regarding that
Yeah?
part, or
Yeah, yeah. I'm talking with a couple of companies also there to see. I still have this part where I'm gauging like, am I a bit too am I too much for some
what is
you
too
know, but I don't
much? What is too much? Tell me, what is too much when you say I'm a little bit too much?
well, you know, for example, in company culture, when we talk about like I do masculine feminine integration in organizations, and that requires difficult conversations sometimes. And that
Hmm.
requires subjects that, again, are not very welcome in corporate culture, which is vulnerability and empathy and courage, right? And that is what is for me required in order for leadership to go from into this new paradigm of conscious leadership, where leadership is not a position, but it's a mindset,
Hmm.
and leadership is connected to the human, starting with self-leadership, and it's connected to the human beings, right, around you. It's not just about driving $1 billion in revenue, and it's not just about external metrics, but there's also internal metrics involved. And not all people in positions of authority are ready for those conversations, so that could be too much for some people, and that's totally okay, you know?
No, as you're explaining this, I was wondering if you go to into a corporation or company, we don't have to say 10,000 people corporation, but some sort of company in the West, and you do the masculine feminine integration work, and you go to Saudi Arabia, right? And Saudi Arabia is slightly delayed, but going very, very fast on everything. How different do you think your approach may be on the feminine masculine integration part? From the very little you know about Saudi Arabia specifically and your 3 week experience there.
Okay, I'm gonna say something crazy right now, but
But that's what we like. Crazy. Go.
I don't know why, but there's something about the the social and religious component that I actually think makes all of this work easier.
Mm.
And so, because for example, in the United States, let me put like another polar
Yeah,
opposite, right? Of like
yeah,
now you can bring all these topics because like diversity, and we all have to see how we say things and what we say, and
yeah.
everything can offend somebody, and like okay, so it's like okay, we cannot function like that either, like that is like and the thing is though, and this is why I found it so powerful and beautiful to teach the work in Saudi Arabia, and I did it with Saudis. It was 100% Saudi audience. Where when we're
Mm.
doing another project with, well, actually that was also mostly Saudis. But what I'm saying is the companies I'm talking to now, their workforce is not mainly Saudi. Maybe there's a big percentage, but there's a huge percentage of internationals, right? So
Hmm.
it's a different culture here. But what I want to say is that like what this woman said to me, that 80% of the course matter was in the Quran, according to her. There is something about this deeper understanding of like man, woman, and this also this understanding of God And I personally am not religious, right? So
Mhm.
I don't belong to any religion. And um, the fact that we could talk about God and have a shared understanding and understand that, and this is something I'm gonna bring in here. Like, the more I read about the Quran, the more I was like, and this is something I talked with the students. I was like, why do we leave things like compassion out of the workplace? You know, is it like, oh no, God only exists like after work? You know what I mean? Like, no.
And the rest business is business, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is the compartmentalization we've done in leadership. It's like, no, at work I have to show up. This is what a leader means, and I'm authority, and people have to respect me. And really, what I'm hearing is like your ego is leading, and you need to feel important, and nobody can challenge you. And what kind of leader is that, right? Like, you're in service to yourself and your own self-importance and your own reputation and grandiosity, and that is not a leader. And so the confrontation here is like, what does bringing humility, compassion, justice into leaders of workplaces look like? What does it
Hmm.
look like for a leader, for a person in a position of authority to look inwards? And instead of feeding their own ego and instead of feeding their own position and importance and reputation, they're like knowing their humanity and saying, well, how can I serve others better? What is needed from me in this moment? And that's not always going to feed your reputation and your status and your ego, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know.
So this is a very interesting challenge. And is that what you
Especially,
work on? Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, yes, that is exactly what I work on. But what is interesting for me about Saudi Arabia is that I see
Yeah.
this dichotomy,
Mhm.
it's a paradox that I would like to, I don't know, talk about, help bridge, you know, if that's something that I can is even in my abilities or capacity. But it's that how can like being so religious and putting so much importance on status and reputation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like for me,
And that's another
these
angle. That's
things,
another
yeah,
that's another axis altogether. But probably the first challenge or issue is going into a historically dichotomous, clearly defined roles of men and women. Masculine, feminine, I'll leave it up to you to play with that. But maybe I subscribe to your gut feeling is it might be easier to work the male female integration in such a system rather than in a much more fluid system that has been fluid for decades. And maybe you don't have a big window to work on this because a country like Saudi Arabia is moving very, very fast into integrating pragmatically, whether it's in the workplace or whatever. So, yeah, you made me think about this also. You made me
yeah,
think about it.
yeah, it's interesting.
So, what's your next mission in Saudi if we were to wrap up? Not necessarily, or what would you like to be working on over there?
Yeah, you know, I think I'm asking myself that question like in my life in general, in this new stage here back in
Mhm.
Europe and in this part of the world. And I think I want to keep creating these beautiful, like, safe spaces where we can put words on all of this that's happening and have deeper conversations and look inward, right? Like, because the inner development, right, is the core of what I'm dedicated to. And so it's like so much is changing, and we don't have the spaces to make sense of it, you know, to talk about it. Because where do they teach these things? Do you get me? Where do we
Yeah,
talk
I get you.
about how leadership is shifting, and where do we talk about it in a way that is not just random people throwing opinions, but that it's well thought out, that there's different perspectives being brought in, right? That there's like a sense of reflection, that there's both facts and intuition, and we can discuss them. So I want to keep assisting in the change. And I would love to do this with companies, with organizations over there. Of course, like with universities and helping upgrade certain curricula or bringing in complementary, well, which is a lot of what my academy does, just bringing in different programs that complement. Because what's difficult for big institutions, for corporations and for academia, like it's difficult for them to catch up to with the speed at which things are moving, you know?
Mhm.
So,
So you
yeah,
want to bring humanity into leadership, more humanity
absolutely.
into leadership. And humanity is some sort of mix between masculine and feminine. Am I getting you right?
Yeah, I think that's a good, it's a good
Now,
summary.
now the most important question is, when are we having you in Lebanon?
Let's
It's a hop
see.
away. Yeah, we have to work on that, right?
I know.
Yeah,
Maybe I hope like by the end of this year we make something happen.
inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah.
You can go throughout the world and have tabbouleh and hummus, but nothing like here. I
I
promise you.
know. I'm
I
so
promise you. It's a
excited.
it's a different product, beast altogether. Anyway,
Yeah.
hey, Sammy, thank you very,
Tony,
very much. Thank you very, very much for being my guest on Deep Dive Shot. Let's see how that podcast, uh, at the end, how it will sound like, and anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
just thank you. Thank you for your beautiful questions, your curiosity, for holding the space. It's beautiful, and I hope it's not the last time also.
It's
Thank
not.
you.
We have other topics to discuss. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.